this in any sense that I know of as far as hypnotherapy is concerned. We do learn regression, but this kind of regression that also deals with, I would say, aspects of PTSD, you name it. It's going on in the
Right.
experiencer's cornucopia of things that have happened to them. So everything I do is really adapted. I didn't reinvent the wheel. I want to make that clear. There's nothing magic about what I do. It comes from solid, tried and true techniques that originally come in a large part from Michael Newton, who has left us, but was a hugely, how shall I say, he was one of the key figures in past life and interlife regression. Anyway, there you go. So I not too long after I began working with these individuals on a regular basis, I came into contact with MUFON, and I was invited by Kathleen Marden to join the Experiencer Research project. And so I see a number of individuals who have been referred through MUFON. They have made a report, and then if the I suppose if the investigator taking the report feels that it might be a good opportunity for regression to get more information, then they recommend that person see me. So it's an incredibly fascinating field of work, and I wish that more hypnotherapists would embrace it.
Yeah. And the funny thing is for the standard individual out here, the layman's, if you will, and people who, I think read up on this, watch the programs, listen to podcasts, don't realize too that there are a lot of law enforcement agencies that also use that type of hypnotherapy, because
Yeah.
sometimes it's been instrumental in
Oh,
remembering
I
aspects
do.
of crimes and
Yep.
things. It's fascinating.
Every once in a while, now there's a very famous guy in Toronto named Dr. Bruce Goldberg who does most of the work with the police, but every once in a while I get called in, and indeed, um, although the evidence I get, or the recollections that the person is able to recall, may not be admissible in court,
Right.
but as you said, we can get numbers, we can get
Hmm.
physical
Yep.
descriptions, and I think it's probably no secret that law enforcement agencies use individuals like myself. It's
Absolutely.
can be a
Absolutely.
great tool, and it's something that I really feel strongly about doing. So
Yeah, I remember reading a book years ago about as far back as World War II, even though people were really, looking at it strangely, parts of Britain. There were some people doing that because, it was instrumental in recalling some
hmm
things during, certain missions, spy missions,
hmm
as well as battles and things that were going on. So it's been around. It's just, I think you would speak on this better than I would. Maybe it's become more of an acceptable thing, that it obviously is something that is true and it's real.
yes,
you
yes,
know
and I would hope that is the case. Now, hypnosis is well over 6,000 years old.
oh yeah.
And if you're a person like myself who believes in perhaps antediluvian civilizations, greater civilizations that came before us, it's even older than that. And it's really a basic principle that has been used in healthcare in every major ancient culture, from the Indus Valley to China to, locations in Europe, the Egyptians. And really what it is our conscious mind, the part that we walk around with and deal in linear time with and do our jobs and our regimented things. That's really only a small part of our consciousness. The greater part of who we are is contained within our subconscious mind. And not only is that the part of our brain that runs all of our autonomic systems, which is why we can do a lot of great healing work with hypno, as far as the way your heart works, the way your immune system works, your lungs, your respiratory thing, all of the systems are regulated by the subconscious mind. And also, everything that has ever happened to us is in there. It's a database. It's an organic hard drive, really. And I also believe that information is also external in the Akashic records, as they say. That's really just a big giant cloud, another kind of a database that if you're tuned in, you can access information in that way too. But we carry our ancient histories with us, and once, if I or any of my colleagues or anybody, if you can get the physical body relaxed enough, there's the secret, relaxed enough, then you can, push aside that little curtain, or however you wish to express it, that separates the conscious from the subconscious mind. Really, in hypnosis, we're just getting that conscious mind out of the way. It's like we're pushing it aside. And also in hypnosis, people are not unconscious. This may surprise your listeners, because of course the Hollywood version of hypnosis is more like a zombie character. It's nothing like that. What we need to do in hypnosis is get the individual either into the alpha state, and preferably for regression into the theta state. And that is just a vibrational state of relaxation. And boy, I can put anybody to sleep, boys. I tell you, I can. I don't know what it is. I can bore anybody into unconsciousness. They call me the Velvet Hammer at work. So
Leslie, we do that quite often with the show.
The Velvet Hammer.
We put
the
people
Velvet
to sleep,
Hammer.
Yeah.
I love it. The Velvet Hammer. We know what? She needs to be on the show at least once a month, so we can put down the Velvet Hammer on everybody.
Right? That's your new call sign. The Velvet Hammer is with us.
Yeah. That is your name from now on. Like Coast to Coast has you back on. Then they just they don't know how to. They don't put you as the Velvet Hammer.
Okay, I'll tell him. I'll tell him next time. I'll tell him next time. It's the Velvet Hammer, George. It's the Velvet Hammer, George. And can I fix your toupee, George? Can I help with that?
We ain't touching that one. Neither is a toupee.
I'm not either. No.
For years, when I'd see George in pictures, I'm like, he's doing the Shatner, man. He's got the.
Yeah, it's the full Shatner. Shatner now has. I think that he's had some kind of surgical procedure, because he's got some plugs. He's got something going on up there. But I swear it looks like pubic hair. What's the deal? What's the deal with that?
The crazy thing is, I am a fan of the Shat. There's a lot of reasons why.
Me too.
And the funny thing is the guy is pushing 90. And you wouldn't think it is the nuttiest thing.
He's amazing.
And look at what is he one of them? Because it's like, how?
He just comes from really sturdy Jewish
Canadian
immigrant stock. He's got his family, escaped Russia and the pogroms. I mean, these people are tough, and he's tough. And also, I don't think anybody's ever said that Bill Shatner has any bad habits. I think and he loves his horses. And but look at the tragedies he's been through. He's been through some real tough stuff in his personal life. God bless him. But I have hopes that I believe that he's happy now.
It's astounding.
But always.
That was a great segue before we came up with the Velvet Hammer. So I'm going to ask the Velvet Hammer. You said you could put anyone to sleep. That was my next question. The masses, I mean, can anyone be hypnotized, or do you think there are some people who can't?
Well, what we know as far as the figures is somewhere around 75% of all people can be hypnotized. And that doesn't mean that we can get 75% of all the people into perhaps the deeper trances that are required for regression. But remember that all the time we're kind of walking around in a light stage of hypnosis anyway. And even when I work in pediatric hypnosis, and with kids, we don't even really put them in trance. We call it waking hypnosis. We do other stuff with them. But I think it's a good figure probably to say that 75% of all the people can be talked into a state of deep relaxation. Now, beyond that, I have found sometimes in doing regression work that the most difficult people to work with as far as regressions are people who have had trauma in their childhood. And they don't want to think about it. don't want to look about it. They don't want to look at it. They don't want to move through it. So when you've got something like that going on, it makes it very difficult to get where we need to go. Because ironically, you can't suppress bad memories without suppressing good memories. It's not that selective. So that's why many people with traumatic childhoods who have had no ET encounters will have missing time.
Yeah. I was told by a guest, Elmer was here when we had the guest on with us. I won't name the person's name, but she was convinced that I've had that and that I've been abducted and, and I've been returned and I was unaware. And I told her that's weird because I don't think I've ever shared openly until that program that I've had a few moments of missing time. And I mean, large amounts. And I shared last night with some friends about such a deal, and my wife has never heard that story before either. But she did remember calling me and wanting to know why it took me so long to get home from Detroit when it would be just a regular hour and a half.
Oh, wow.
Drive, and it turned out to be 6-7 hours later. And
man.
Yeah, I thought I was only on the road for about maybe 2.5, 3 hours, and there's portions of that trip I do not remember. I'm not making the show about me, but I'm just saying.
Right.
I think that I am a believer in that. I'm not going to tell anybody that somebody came down and got me. I just say I've had moments of that in my life. Very few.
Well, obviously they gave you back, so.
Yeah, they put you back.
Yeah.
Well, I think that that is a very kind of a classic missing time thing. First of all, it didn't happen when you were an adolescent and out there, smoking some spliffs out someplace. It happened as an adult person,
Right.
with your everything, under control. And, that's something that I think might be interesting to explore. In my personal feeling, I don't think there is such a thing as a person having one experience with ETs in some sense. I believe if there's one, there's many.
Yeah.
I think the idea of an isolated thing is very, very rare. Even Travis Walton, who I know and have had the privilege to talk to, his feelings about his experience have sort of morphed a little bit over the years. And although he wouldn't discuss it directly with me, he now believes that there were other events in his life which pointed to some type of contact. It's just it was all too propinquitous what happened to him. The fact that he got out of the car.
You get the award for good word usage. I am a fan of good word usage. And when I hear people use words like, such as that, I'm like, man.
Oh boy.
Eloquent.
What do you expect from the Velvet Hammer? What do you expect from the Velvet Hammer?
Yeah. 3 to 4 syllable words are much more soporific for people. They put them out a lot faster.
Man. I love it. I mean that from my heart. I love that. I just love great.
He's just used to using 4-letter words, hearing from my mouth usually.
Yeah. No, I use a few of those myself. I mean, after I am from New York. I am originally from New York, and I used to have a horrendous, accent, which I will not duplicate. But when I decided I wanted to be an actress, I thought, well, I can't continue with this, horrible speech. It's the lowest. I'll never get a gig. So in those days, you could go to the library and actually check out big LPs of plays, not just Broadway shows, but like plays. So I picked a few favorites, some Olivier stuff, and I had also the original Broadway show of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, right? So
oh my goodness,
I didn't even understand what was going on, but I listened to these records all weekend, over and over, and practiced and recorded and practiced, and finally I emerged on Monday morning as a fully realized Christopher Plummer. So.
Man!
I get that.
Oh man!
That is funny.
I had the mid-Atlantic accent right down, so the Shat has a little bit of that too, because that's
Oh yeah. You are
All
a
right,
very
I got a
eclectic
question. I got
individual.
a question for the Velvet
Yes.
Hammer. All right.
Okay.
All right. So, have you ever seen the movie The Fourth Kind?
I have.
Okay. What was your thoughts on it?
Well, I think unfortunately some people are under the impression that it's factual. There is the clips that you see that are supposed to be of a real thing were just shot on 8mm stock or whatever to kind of look like that. But and a film like that, which was very entertaining, by the way. I'm not saying you shouldn't make a wonderful, scary film like that. I loved it myself, but it's very removed from the reality of how all of this works. And from what we know, and I'm not saying just myself, but my colleagues that work in this area, most experiences that people are having with extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial beings, and I'm saying upwards of 90%, are very positive. They're enlightening. It's almost like, people are humanoids are working on projects with some of these beings. It's a very positive kind of thing. Now, what I will say is once humans get involved, everything just goes left, because
yeah.
I now, and I didn't accept this at first, guys. I did not accept what I'm about to tell you, but I do now because of the many, many, many clients that have come to me who are telling me the same things. I do believe that there is a secret space program. I do believe that there is a deep state military ET collaboration where we have had bases on the moon and Mars and God knows where else. I mean, even, Captain Randy Kramer, who's a very good friend of mine, he has said that at this point, we pretty much control who comes into our solar system. And this, these black budget programs, the secret space program, which is all based on reverse engineering, all of that goes back to the Truman administration. So we're talking about right after World War II. That's when everything took a real kind of a dark shift, because we could have gotten technology that would have allowed us to feed everyone on the earth, to have water. But instead, we wanted fiber optics, we wanted weapons, we wanted that kind of stuff. And there's a wonderful book, if your many fans have not heard of it, there's a wonderful book called The Day After Roswell by Captain Philip Corso, and he talks in great detail about what happened immediately after Roswell. And of course, as I'm sure all of your listeners know, yes, there was a crash. It was actually three crashes, and we were using some type of sonic weapon, and we caused the crash. And some of these beings survived, and they made a kind of an agreement with the Truman administration where they were having some sort of issues with reproduction, but they would be allowed to take a small amount of humans and take, DNA material, and in exchange, they would give us tech. So that is what happened, and the way it was hidden was like very clever, because Corso was made the head of what they called the Department of Foreign Technology. Well, it was foreign, all right, and it was like, well, you guys at the Skunk Works, you get this thing. You guys at Hughes Aircraft, you get this thing. So it was all apportioned so that nobody really knew what they were doing. Probably, if anything, they thought it was Russian technology. The Cold War was just about to ramp up.
They've tried to sugarcoat that and make up so many different stories since. And poor Jesse Marcel is the one. They realized they dropped the ball, because Jesse said outright exactly what it was. And Jesse, talked to Jesse's son. He's like, no, that was not the material I held as a child. So they had to backpedal, and then they started making up counter stories. I hated that show Fact or Fiction, where they went out there and said, well, we've proven now that it was just one of our weather balloons. Here's the material.
That was ludicrous. Ludicrous.
How many years later you come up with another lie, and then when you release the documents, I mean, people out here in the public, I don't think on a whole, this is kind of a loaded thing I'm going to say here
Mm-hmm.
because I witness stupidity every day.
Yes.
Stupidity is a very unforgiving mistress. But where I'm
Yes.
going with this is that is that you know what I'm going. You know what I'm saying,
I
right?
know. I
So
know.
you go out here on the other scope of things, and they release documents, and half of them are, people can't see me at home with this podcast, but it's all blacked out, folks. So if there's nothing to hide, well, national security. Hey, man, we're talking in the 40s.
Yeah.
What could be? So stop the lies.
Yeah.
I
Stop
think
the
Well,
it's
lies.
been lie on top of lie on top of lie with
well,
this.
the thing is the simple fact of, they release stuff. Like, let's say, whenever they released the first batch of UFO stuff back in maybe 2010, 2012, something
Mhm.
along those lines. All right. So they released all this stuff and they're like, oh, in the 1940s, this happened. Well, everybody was like, oh, they're admitting to Roswell. No, they were not admitting to Roswell. They were admitting to the Aurora incident that
Yeah.
happened before
Yeah.
Roswell did. So basically, they're admitting, but not admitting. So basically,
It's
it's
just an
kind of like,
insult.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of like,
Listen,
yeah, I ate
listen,
the
folks.
cookie, but it wasn't that cookie.
I've said this, and it's kind of in continuity with what we're talking about, people, and you can hate me for it or not. I love my country, but
Mhm.
there are many times, more 99.9% of the time, I do not trust my government, and I surely don't like it because this is the kind of stuff that if there's some good that comes
Mhm.
out of it, as Leslie, as you're telling us, because I've seen the other documentary where he goes on and on about all these dark op things, and there's
Mhm.
negativity, and I had to turn it off. I thought,
I don't go with that, man. I'm
me
not
neither.
seeing it. I'm not
I
seeing
don't.
it.
Me neither. Me neither. And like you said, the only thing that I would go along with, folks, is what Leslie had said, that the minute we get involved, it goes left. And I love that description because, if you want to talk about who the real angels are and who Satan is, it's us, folks. Look what we do to each other.
Oh
Okay.
my
We
God.
can
Yes.
either be the greatest good that you've ever seen to do great things for one another, or just look around the world. So
I know.
when it comes in continuity to this, we'll get back on track with your interview, Leslie. I'm sorry.
No,
But
it's
when
all
it comes
right.
to continuity with this, I would want to believe that too. And I would almost like to believe that, if they are here working with us, and maybe there's several different,
Many.
species,
Yeah.
because we're friends with Dr. Michael Lynch. I don't know if you know Mike, but
Oh, yes. Yes.
Mike's come on the show with us. He's good friends with Bob Elmer and myself, and Mike says the same stuff, that there's also a contingent that's working with us that's trying to maintain some sort of a balance, so we don't blow ourselves up, type of thing as well.
Well, they're
'Cause
concerned,
we come close,
We come
We're the
close.
great experiment.
It is the great experiment, and that's a term that is used often by ETs because we have, the 5 fingers of man. We have a diverse, wildly different genetic types of hominids. I mean, we have we have northern people, we have, people in Africa who are, I mean, we have a wild situation here. But I agree with you completely because we do not need any help to be horrible to each other.
No, we
And
don't.
we
We have
don't, and
mastered that.
we have mastered it. And I'm very tired of us not taking responsibility because I really think that, and from some of the info that I get, and you guys, you may agree with me or you may not, but I really think at this point that there is a kind of Gene Roddenberry-like United Federation of Planets. And there is a benevolent structure of beings that have evolved to a certain point. And I also think they do have a kind of a hands-off thing. They're trying to get us to grow up and solve our own problems. And look, we can't even create racial harmony on our planet. And what would happen if we were talking about interspecies harmony? At this point, I think, below the Mason-Dixon line, everything would just have to crack off. And, because it's not going to happen. We have a great variety of, a great diversity of people in different stages of evolution. I mean, we have Charles Manson, and we have Adolf Hitler, and we have, other despots, and then we've got the Dalai Lama and Mother Teresa. What a spectrum we have.
It's always a fight of good and evil. Always.
It is, and I almost think it propels the universe.
Yeah,
as
light and dark, right?
Positive and negative. Because someone on a, I was on a program, very fascinating program the other day, but it had the host was also a demonologist. I mean, these are areas that are not my forte. I'm accepting of all, but how could we have angelic beings, which I believe we do, without having beings that have never physicalized, that are purely about every vice and selfishness?
They feed off negativity. Absolutely.
Yeah, you can't have God without the devil.
I almost think so. I although I'm not sure that there's an anthropomorphic devil in that way, but there may be. Who am I to say? But I do think that that we have to clean up our own backyard, and this is the message that a lot of experiencers are getting, including oh my goodness, who's that gentleman from Florida? He's he's been an experiencer for so many years, but that was the message that he got. Jason Rice has gotten messages like that. I think we got to take responsibility. We have to solve our own problems. And if we truly show our need and our heart and our intention, I think all the help that we would ever need is just at our fingertips. We could have 0 point energy. We could feed the world. We could put an end to people who are starving and sick. And shouldn't that be, that's our family. Shouldn't we be putting that before anything else?
No, that's a thing that I'm involved in and something I believe in 100%. We're going to take our first break, everybody. Stay with us, please. We're going to be back for more with the Velvet Hammer, Leslie Mitchell Clark, and I hope that's wine, isn't it? Is he drinking wine? She's drinking wine.
Well, I think it's a juice. It's a juice box, but
it's a juice. It's a grape juice, folks.
I'm not the only one that calls it that. I am not the only one that calls it that.
Listen, I may be.
Oh my God! It's my little juice box. I know.
Hey,
we may be giving a break.
Yeah, we call it that. We call it that too. Don't feel bad. We call it that too.
My little juice box. Well, I worked pretty hard today, boys. I saw 4 people, and I'm as we say in Yiddish, vertutzt. But I'm so happy to see you guys.
Again, there's another award.
All right.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, folks. We'll be back for more on I Want to Believe Radio. Don't forget some of our sponsors, as you will hear on a few of our PSAs. In between the excellent music that we bring to you here on Unrestricted Paranormal, you're listening to us also on the I Want to Believe fan page on Facebook, as well as Live Radio One. But let's thank our sponsors real quick. Henderson Castle, hendersоncastle.com. It's an 1895 bed and breakfast here in downtown Kalamazoo. You too can book your next stay here and enjoy yourself with a great bit of dining. They have a dining facility, a chop house, and a spirit lounge. Yes, you heard it right, a spirit lounge. That is the bar, and they have several themed drinks. Yours truly, you can come see me once a month. I host the historic ghost tours, if you will, of Henderson Castle. And I've been working that as an investigator for 14 years, and I have a lot to share with you. Also, Gun Barrel Coffee. You've had the rest, drink the best. I know you still haven't gotten any coffee, Elmer, so just shut your lips over there. I'm working on it. But the guys put together a great deal of coffee. It's run by veterans, roasted by veterans. Proceeds of those sales go to veteran organizations. Also, those of you that see me on the video here, I am wearing Honor the Sacrifice shirt from Till Valhalla. This is also a veteran-run organization. The campaign is 22 a day. Unfortunately, we're losing 22 veterans a day to mental illness and suicide. And so we definitely want you to get involved and help these folks out. They help the families, and they also prepare memorial plaques for these families that lose their veterans. Okay, having said that, we now will take our break. We'll be back for more. And we're back. And as I tell all of you every show, we don't go anywhere. We're sitting here looking at each other on the monitor, and but you went somewhere. Hopefully, you got yourself a frothy beverage, some grape juice, if you will, or some coffee. Some coffee. I have Gun Barrel with some Baileys in it. Oh, yummy, yummy. Drinking, folks, out of my Ghostbuster mug. And I want to
Love
remind
it.
everybody too that November, the new movie is coming out. I also run the Great Lakes Ghostbuster Coalition. Look it up on Facebook. I oversee 15 other Ghostbuster groups here in the state of Michigan. And we have the suits, the packs, the ectos. I just unveiled my ecto yesterday, my brand new one, number 7 that I've built. And this is a thing that we do for charity outreach, spreading goodwill and fun through our fandom. Go check us out, please. Also, the Kalamazoo Ghostbusters. But we are with Leslie Mitchell Clark here on the I Want to Believe radio show. I'm Dan Holroyd.
You forgot the last part. You forgot
What?
the last part. The Velvet
Oh, the
Hammer.
Velvet Hammer. I'm sorry. We're also here with Elmer, the Boss Man Bosser, and Leslie. Thanks for being with us. I know we've touched on some really deep things, and man, this is a great show. I'm going to have you back on for sure.
Oh, I'd adore to come back anytime.
I saw
Yeah.
one of the bullet points. When Michelle sends me these things, we always get like talking points.
Oh, yes.
I try to stick to a lot of them. Sometimes, like we're doing now, we just keep it loose, like we're at the bar having a drink and we talk about what you do, and you share with us what it is that you feel you really want to share. The important parts of your life and your work.
Mhm.
But I saw one on here that I knew I was going to ask anyway, because I deal with this in paranormal investigating, which is
Mhm.
there are times I have to discern with people who seem to have a mental illness,
Oh, boy.
whether or not they deserve a certain degree of help on my part. Now, that's not to be not professional or not to be
Mhm.
caring, and that I don't care. It's just
Mhm.
I have to know, I have to gauge whether or not the mental illness is part of what they think that they're
Mhm.
seeing, or is there other stuff happening as
Yes.
well. And I
Yes.
was going to ask you, how do you discern that? How do you break that down? I'm
Oh,
interested.
wow. What a question. And how timely, because I just had a very traumatic incident where a client, nobody who had anything to do with the metaphysical thing, I made an error in judgment and thought she was just an eccentric, neurotic person, but
Hmm.
there turned out to be real evidence of psychosis, and I had to release her as a client immediately.
Right.
Now, I'm not sure what the law is in Michigan, but I think it's the same as what we do because our guild is actually based in the U.S. I'm not really allowed to work with anyone who has been diagnosed with a mental illness. Now, by
Right.
a mental illness, I don't mean just anxiety, depression, OCD, ADD. I don't mean any, what I'm talking about is probably more like schizophrenic,
Yeah.
a bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, something psychotic and profound, like that. So, and unfortunately, um, some people who are genuine experiencers have been damaged mentally by the things that have happened to them.
Sure.
And also there is a percentage of people who are having some kind of dissociative disorder and have had no metaphysical experiences, but are in fact hallucinating,
Right.
ideating,
They're
all of that kind of
convinced. Right.
stuff.
Right.
They're convinced. Now, what I usually do when someone wants to come see me and says that they've had, an experience, I have a really long intake that I either do on the phone or on Zoom or some way where I ask them a lot of
Right.
questions and we have a chance to talk and by the time that we finish chatting, I have a very good idea about whether or not that person should pursue hypnotherapy for recovered memories of ET experiences. I really, I ask the right questions, and even though people aren't often honest, they will maybe hide their
Right.
psychiatric history. And I also think, I'm also so thankful that I have all of those years of experience, in the state mental hospital where I dealt with very, very sick people. So I seem to have my antenna up, and it has never happened to me where I have treated someone with regression of an ET experience and they were not mentally well. I have always, thus far, I have always been able to, weed out the people who should not be utilizing my therapy. Now, that doesn't mean that I hang them out to dry, because I certainly do not. I have
Right. Right.
colleagues that are both psychiatrists and psychologists and psychotherapists who are open to the idea of ET contact. So depending on what that person needs, I will always refer them on to somebody understanding and wonderful that can help them and can legally help them,
Right.
as opposed to me,
Yeah.
in this situation that we're in.
No, excellent. Yeah, that's how I've operated. I mean, I'm not a trained, psychologist by any stretch, but being an investigator in my career,
Yeah,
there were signs, and there's a questionnaire that we give to them.
yeah,
We do a
yeah,
phone interview first, and then I like to meet with the client, potential client, I should say, and we call them
yeah.
clients. I don't know why, because there's no money exchanged for the
I
work I
have
do.
to call them a client. Now, when I work for, and I also work under in a I work as a consultant in a
Mhm.
psychology practice, and when I'm doing that work, I can call them patients.
Right,
So
right.
it's anyway, what have
Well,
you.
for us, it was
But
just a
yeah,
use of words. We like I said, these were potential clients and all my group has done and always continue to do is to really go and improve that you're actually having, real paranormal activity. I
yes,
don't
yes,
remove and I don't, but there were times, as I've said in the past,
yes,
kind of jokingly, that I've turned into the paranormal social worker because those issues I saw on hand during my career and other things that we
yeah,
could sit down with people and share some insight and as an outside observer. But like you, I have a very tough questionnaire and I
hmm,
look to ask things three different ways because
yep,
as I explain to them once they've passed both the verbal interview and the one-on-one and the
hmm,
questionnaire
hmm,
as to why I do that because I'm looking not to trip you up on purpose to catch you at something, but not everybody wants to be honest 100% up front because
very
they
true.
fear
Yeah.
they fear judgment, they fear you know a whole number of things. I'm sure
Oh,
that you're
they
familiar
are
with this,
paranoid
but
even
yes,
sometimes.
very much so. And so I have only done one or two where I knew that the person was very upfront with me about
Mhm,
some mental health issues, and I said, "Well,
mhm,
look, I don't want to be that guy that would turn them down to see if there's really things happening in the home just because they have a mental illness." I didn't feel very right about that, but
mhm,
we had
mhm,
gone to a couple different individual cases, which again sounds like you've had the same experience,
mhm.
where I'm like, I can't help you. Here's somebody
Yeah,
that we can recommend because
yeah,
it was going to be too dangerous for their health,
yeah.
my well-being, and putting my crew in any kind of harm's way because I
Yes,
felt that it was that
yes.
serious. And I think a lot of people doing this work, probably not so much yours, well, probably yours too.
Mm.
They don't take those cautions. They really need to be
Oh, they
careful with what
don't.
they're doing.
Yeah, there's a lot of practitioners that don't, and I think I once asked, of course, I carry practitioner insurance like anybody would, and I once asked the insurance guy. I said, this is such a benign treatment. The worst thing that happens is somebody can fall asleep. What are people suing about? What
Yeah,
is the crux of why I would even need to carry insurance? And he said it all has to do with regression. So this is a sensitive kind of treatment, and it
wow,
really cannot be done on somebody who is unstable.
correct.
So that's why, we have to, but just like you, Danny, I, there's the questionnaire, there's the talk in person. But thank God I can honestly say that through that process and sending the people that need to go on to someone else, the only problem I have ever had happened last week with a
Yeah,
person who came for weight loss, and that's in many years of practice. So, and I was fooled. I was fooled. I
it can
was,
happen. Yeah, it's happened to me.
that's
Yeah,
all I can say.
yeah,
Error in judgment. I did not see the pathology until, even people with even borderline personality people can maintain an appearance of normalcy for a period of time. It's just that they can't sustain it.
right, right. As far as like these encounters, just to jump back to that real quick too. Um, I've often had questions because we've had folks on who do a little bit of what you do. I'm friends with a
Mhm.
woman by name of Lorna Reynolds, and Lorna's been on
Mhm.
our program, and Lorna does similar work to you. She does more of a past life regression thing, not so much
Mhm.
any of the ET stuff. But what age does this? I mean, because you brought that up when I shared my
Mhm.
experience, so it made me think of the question: what
Uh,
age does this generally happen for people when they start having these like encounters, or I don't want to say
okay.
abductions because that sounds so
I don't
violating,
like
but
abduction. I
maybe
don't like abductions either. So just encounters, I guess, is
okay,
good, or experiences. Well, from as I said a little bit earlier, I don't think there's any such thing as somebody having an isolated experience
right,
where they have a strong visual thing or an encounter of the fourth guy, whatever that may be. What we seem to find in the majority of experiencers that take the route of regression is that their experiences begin around the age of 2 or 3.
oh wow,
And this sounds, I know this sounds absolutely incredible, but it is what, in fact, I just had an experience today with, I was regressing a gentleman who had some partial memories of this and that. And we went back to when he was 2, and a being came in and he flew through the ceiling. I mean, it's absolutely astonishing. But yes, it seems that these experiences begin very early, and of course now, thank goodness, and I think since the late '80s. This one of the things I didn't follow, but this agreement that Truman made with this specific group of Greys to harvest genetic material, it it ran out. I mean, it was timed, and so, thank God, most of the experiencers that I work with now have been taken and had experiencers later than like the late '80s. So we don't see really as much of this odd, DNA taking. And, of course, with women, it's much more physical. They would harvest eggs. Some Greys have been used women repeatedly to have a fertilized hybrid child, and then they would remove it and put it somewhere else. So a whole plethora of this kind of stuff went on, and thank God now it doesn't happen. However, um, I deal with a certain type of PTSD, you would have to call it. And
well
also
yeah, from
speaking
these encounters, I can only imagine. Yes,
exactly. And speaking of veterans, I just wanted to say one thing. Yes, I'm politically very left wing, but I have a huge personal thing about treating veterans with dignity and with
hmm
thanks and everything else that comes with that. And one of the things about this secret space program, all these black ops programs where people have served and then have been regressed or whatever the heck happened to them, there is a whole huge chunk of society that are veterans and are being dishonored. They're dishonored because they're not allowed, their memories have been repressed. We have to fight to get them back. They're dishonored because they have come back with battle injuries and mental health issues, and they're not being treated. These people can't go to the VA. They can't, they are invisible. In a way, it reminds me of what happened after Vietnam, that the people that did fight were treated with such disrespect,
right.
and because it was an unpopular war, right?
Yeah,
Well,
and
well,
there's a number of operative, how do I want to put this? Groups that operate in all the different military branches.
hmm
And as you said, if there's one that's in a deep space program, you're sworn to national security and secrecy till the day
you
you're
are.
under the ground. And
Yes,
it piles up on you after a while. Being privy to certain secrets,
yes,
there's times you feel, well, it's safe to talk about it now. Well, somebody knocks on the door, or you get a phone call reminding you that, hey, your family's doing really well over there on such and such street. And I've heard such
yeah,
reports from people that they
yep,
even get
yep,
threat of life. And
yep,
it like you said, it's got to be a PTSD moment where you're just holding all this info, and maybe at times against your own conscience.
hmm
Once you reach a point in your life where you're thinking, man, people need to know about this stuff and know what's going on, and I can I don't even want to say I can imagine, because I cannot imagine.
Mhm, mhm.
It's unbelievable that it takes place, and I know where you're going with that, and I agree with you too. It's a very sad and unsaid thing,
It's
and
wrong.
these
I
people need to be treated better, and need to be
they need to
around the
be
world. I'm not just
acknowledged.
talking
They
about
need
U.S. veterans, folks. I'm
around the
talking about
world.
around the world. These people that go out here and do this thing for betterment of mankind and
Yeah,
themselves, or
yeah.
personal reasons they join. I'm getting on a soapbox. So,
No,
and
I'm with you. I'm with you,
I'm on
man.
the opposite side. I'm on the opposite side of the aisle than you are. But you know what? We can still get along, and we can still share ideas. And my message has always been, regardless of where I'm at, where I come from politically, is that, can we just stop? I know
Yeah.
we got political here, didn't we, Elmer? Can we just stop,
Well,
everybody, and get along and stop the nonsense? Okay,
yeah,
please.
yeah.
Can
I
we
think we're
please stop?
getting, we're getting apolitical. We're going beyond that
Woo!
because we're talking about unity and
Humanity.
and
Yes.
oneness. And this again, these are again are the messages that people with encounters are getting. We are all one, and I really believe actually that we are in the same kind of soul group, if you will,
Oh yeah.
with many different species. And even I don't know if Paul Hillier, God bless him, ever did your show. He just passed away
No, I
last
don't
week, but
think we've had
Paul
Paul.
Hillier was the vice premier of Ontario, and he was the national security director of Canada for some time.
Mm,
And
mm.
he
I know who he
became,
is. Yes.
you know who I mean, he
Yes.
became a primary whistleblower and
Yep.
spent the balance of his life after public service writing books and talking about what he knew, and
Yeah.
no one stopped
Trying to
him. He
let us
was
know. Right.
brave as anything. But he said, I believe the figure was 83. He said there were at least 83 different species that the
Woo.
Canadian government was dealing with in full, they trade agreements, treaties, you name it. And he also said that, as far as he knew, really every major government in the world was involved with the secret space
Crazy.
program.
Just
So,
crazy.
this,
So
and
so
there's trillions of dollars. I mean, as an American, I feel there are trillions upon trillions of dollars
oh,
that are
certainly.
missing, that have gone to these projects, which the American people had a right to approve or not approve.
Yep.
And, that's me coming from a left-wing socialist country, but
No,
that's how I feel.
that's not just you. We are, all of us, a lot of us, not all. I'm generally speaking. There's many of us over here too saying this goes in hand with, how come we haven't been back to the moon, guys?
And how
Okay,
about, the
things
information?
escape. Correct. Things escape NASA, folks, and I've seen things that I've truly believable.
Yeah.
Astronauts themselves started
Hmm.
blowing the whistle and saying things, things
Yep.
that were really cryptic and strange. But let me get back to these children, because I've always wondered. You see how my wheels work, right, Leslie? They're constantly going on 10 different things. So if I jump
Yes.
from one thing to another, please forgive me. Elmer knows the story. I got 100 things going on at one time.
Yeah, that poor little gerbil is going to die one of these days.
He is. But I feed him
Get him
well.
a new wheel, for God's sake.
Yeah, please
Get
get
him
a new
some
wheel.
water or something. I mean,
Or some water.
Some water on the brain.
not the juice box. Not the juice box. though,
Not the
okay?
juice box. No,
Not
no.
the juice box.
Yeah.
So creating these hybrid children, I mean, and they're out here in society. Hell, I could be one.
Mhm.
You could be one. What's the purpose? I mean, is it for the betterment of us, or is there some other underlying thing that is happening? Does that make sense?
Boy, this is the question. It really, really is. Now, I have had many, many people that I've worked with have been shown their hybrid children. Because of course, they've taken genetic material and they do it in all kinds of various kind of
Mhm.
icky ways, and they use screen memories and this and that. But I have had, grown men sitting in my hypnosis chair sobbing because their children were shown to them and then taken away.
Oh, geez.
So, we we have an attachment to these beings. I think that they can, many of them now can live on our planet. That there's been enough of a combo situation going on that they can. I think some of them still have to live aboard craft, but this seemed to be the kind of end result of this genetic issue that went on that I was describing during the Truman administration. This seems to be part of what they are trying to do. And maybe they just can't reproduce. Maybe they just need fresh DNA. I mean, and it's not all, it's this specific group of grays. I don't want anybody to get the idea that all grays are bad, or all reptilians are bad, or all insectoids are bad. We're talking now with these hybridization experiments. We're talking about a specific group of grays, the same grays of the Corona crash and the Roswell crash. That's what we're talking about. So these, Zeta reticulates.
Yeah, I was going to ask Elmer, where are you on all that? I mean, do you believe that they've been here and there's been races working with us? Because you've been in the UFO thing long before I got into this stuff.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, they have. I mean, if you look back at some of the stuff, I mean, even if you look back, if you don't follow the Bible and actually look at the Bible and actually kind of read it into a non-religious aspect of it, I mean, you have beings coming down from the heavens and creating, hybrid humans, Nephilim, all that, and giants and all this stuff. Well, how are we created as well? I mean, all in all, I mean, we're pretty much hybrids as well. I mean,
we are the hybrids.
Yeah, I mean, we're the original experiment, and now this other species wants to come in and try to put their twist on it. It's kind of like how, I hate to say it like this, it's gonna sound god awful, but it's like having like two different breeds of dogs, and you want to splice them together to make a new breed of dog. I mean, that's what they're doing. I mean, they're just experimenting with us, seeing what we're doing. I mean, it's kind of like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, why do people, like the whole abduction thing, like, why do they put implants in them? Well, when you catch a fish, the DHHR or whoever is going to put, like, chips in the fish to track it, see where it's going, all that stuff. Just like cattle, they chip the cattle, all that. I mean, I hate to sound like this, and I mean, some of the reports that I've read, it's like some of the species of aliens uses for cattle to eat.
Well, I hope that's not true. That's a Twilight Zone to serve man, right?
Yeah, right.
Twilight Zone episode.
But I mean, in the long run, I mean, it kind of would make sense to,
Well, I believe with a lot of what you're saying, Elmer, and what Leslie's touched on too. And I never used to till a few years ago, when they finally released and discovered that it's either Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal isn't even related to us. And I thought, how could that be?
Oh yeah.
How could we have two different humanoids living on the planet? Oh, well, we don't know. Okay, well, that opened the book for me. I'm thinking, well, I know because I think some of us, a majority of us, are not from here. I think we were genetically engineered and we were put here. Like you said, a great experience. That does not shake my faith, and it does not change things that I believe in, because I still think there's a higher power. I don't even want to get to a whole nother show.
Yeah.
But, it's like I said, there's way too many things that just do not add up, but then they add up in other directions, if that makes any nonsensical sense.
No, it makes total sense. And just to parenthesize and really concur with what you're both saying, human beings, humanoids, Homo sapiens sapiens, we have I think it's over 6,000 genetic things that can go wrong. Yep. And I mean, it's incredible. Nowhere else in nature do we find any being that has anything like that kind of capacity for flawed genetic stuff. And I think to a certain extent, we, in our creation, probably by the Anunnaki, whatever one chooses to believe, they tinkered around with our DNA, and sometimes there have been very bad consequences from that. It's not a perfect job. We're not talking about gods here. We're talking about people who are just a little bit ahead of us in the whole situation, and we are them. And especially when you talk about Hyperboreans, Norse people, the Anunnaki were very tall and blonde. I mean, I think, and then many of us are carrying O negative blood, myself included, which is only in 1.5% of the population, and you too. There you go. There is something very significant about O negative blood. It is, in fact, the oldest blood type. They know when the different blood types came in. O and O negative was first. We don't have anything. We don't have that rhesus coating on our blood cells, which means how could we have even developed on this planet coming from the animal kingdom without that?
And I discovered recently too, Leslie, that my family, through the the gene thing sending on, whatever it was, that
23andMe or
and that we discovered that I come from a Dane background, a lot of my family, and Irish, and then there's German and French.
Me too.
That's crazy, and it explains a lot of weird things. But then the other thing as well, now when you mentioned, like the Norse looking alien species here, I always think of that whole Thor scenario, with Eisenhower and whatnot. Do you put much into that story? Do you think
it looks very compelling to me when you're talking about Valiant Thor. It looks very compelling to me because he was being a Pleiadian who, the Pleiadians look just like us. They can move among us. Actually, and Pleiadians encompasses quite a few groups, the Lyrans, the this, the that, so I've seen the photographs and it just resonates with me, and it makes a lot of sense. And it also makes sense that here this guy came, to say, I'm a representative, I'm not a god, I'm here, but I can help you. And his help was rejected, particularly with regard to switching to 0-point energy. And all of a sudden, no gas vehicles, no coal mining, all that kind of thing.
And I'm a terrible human being, Leslie, because I love my, I love my cars and I love, but at the same time, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. That we should have we're in the 21st century, folks. Everybody listening, I want you to stop and think for a minute. Listen to Dan here. Dr. Dan's going to talk for a second. Why do we not have these energies? Why do we not have, inexpendable energy sources? We should by now. We should. And what you see is these businesses, it's another show, conglomerates getting together to pound this stuff down and hide it. And I do not
hide it.
That.
They're doing it.
There's downfalls to some green energy production, and there's downfalls to what we're still doing. The fact of the matter is, we look at the technology jump we've had, folks, since World War II. And if you go back and look at our industrial age, I want people to think on this and how long it took to reach certain aspects of our creativity and where we were as mankind, and that huge jump, less than 70 years, and we now have cell phones, folks, that could have powered the moon program in '69. So
that's
your
right.
little cell phone, okay?
Yeah,
I show it. It's incredible. So where did we go with that? Like, come on. There's been engineering versus engineering. This is why we have the things we have.
Absolutely.
And let alone a discovery that Elmer and I heard on another show we did last week, about the things they're discovering now with crystals and how they're going to be able to do stuff with crystals. So if you don't think there's extraterrestrial involvement, I don't know what else I could do or send you, or where Leslie could send you. Maybe she could work with you to have you really see that something is going on here. I truly believe that.
People are fearful for no reason.
Yeah, I'm not afraid. I just want to know.
Fear is that we just have to be afraid of what our rogue, humanoids are doing. That's what we have to be afraid of, not the benevolent beings that are cousins that want to help us. And I think they bear, I think particularly if it's Anunnaki, they bear responsibility for, maybe cutting off part of our DNA so that we wouldn't be able to ascend, or whatever.
And I'm going to use really foul language, folks, so forgive me in advance. But, Elmer and I were talking off air about people what we know and some people we've encountered. And it goes for this with these programs, these hidden things and us as human beings. Folks, there's shit people out here, okay? And they have nothing but their self-interest at heart.
Yep.
And honestly, I mean,
yep.
maybe we'll reach a day where we're going to rise up, or maybe things will slowly, change on its own. But I don't know. Like I said, it's a terrible thing to think on. But Leslie, as I interjected, and I know I interrupt a lot, I apologize, because again,
okay.
The wheels are running constantly. I'm not afraid of this information or to really truly know. It doesn't frighten me. I just think I just want to know. I don't understand, with some of the stuff that we probably should be let in on, why. I guess I understand parts of it, but the secrecy is it's reached a point of just ridiculousness at this point.
Oh, it is ridiculous. It's completely inane. I mean, but the thing is, we really are living in a time of truth. There is no suppressing the kind of programming that you are doing and that other people are doing. And I think that the ETs became frustrated with trying to deal with us on any kind of administrative level. And my feeling is that disclosure is now a grassroots movement.
Yeah, and you just segued into my next question was what do they truly want? What are they truly after in all this? What is it that the ETs truly want? They want
juice
boxes.
They want juice boxes. They want juice boxes. That's what they want.
I was going to say they want an In-N-Out burger and a Checkers on every corner.
Oh God, I'd love an In-N-Out burger right now.
I know, right?
Oh my God. Anyway, well, that aside, what we really hear are messages of humanity, and we're trying to help you, and you don't need to suffer, and you won't open yourselves up, and you keep doing the same shit over and over again. It just seems like messages of help that we are not really absorbing. Now, one thing that I don't know if you've explored this much or heard anybody talk about this on your program, but the experiencers who are mature, and I'm going to say like probably entering midlife, what seems to happen at that point is physical encounters don't really happen the way they did. They're not really taken aboard craft, that kind of thing. But what does happen is they've been taught to use, I would have to say, astral projection techniques, because I think that various ETs are not necessarily even physically here when they're showing themselves. I think they use holographic technology, and I think they are all expert at sending their psychophysical body or bilocating, which we can do. We have great lamas and wonderful spiritual evolved people that can do this now. So this is not that far out. But one of the reasons that I think that people are selected, in addition to psychic ability, in addition to heredity, is the ability to bilocate, because that is how we communicate in the forthcoming intergalactic world. We don't send faxes. We're not texting. We can actually show up without putting our physical body through the stressor of going through a wormhole or space travel, because it's always a stressor. That's the thing. That's the thing about space travel. There's no clean, effortless space travel. Even in I don't know if you've ever read the amazing book from Len Kasten called The Secret Journey to Planet Serpo. But it was about a government program. He got a whistleblower. It was about a government program that involved an exchange of, I think, 20 or so of our astronauts, men and women, and then beings from Serpo came over. The Serpents, and they were distantly related to us. They were Greys, yes, but not these little tall barely biological guys. They were, bipedal beings. So in that instance, this exchange sort of mimicked what maybe many of you saw in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Do you remember at the end of the film where all the astronauts line up and they get on board well, that actually happened, boys and girls. That actually occurred.
Michael's told us that too. Yeah, he's told us that story too.
It's happened, and if you can ever get Len Kasten on the show, he's a genius, just a lovely guy. But he wrote The Secret Journey to Planet Serpo, and it is a landmark book in ufology.
You're talking about them exchanges and stuff. What is exactly? I mean, are there characteristics to who they want to trade out with, or anybody that they're coming down and taking? Is there certain things they're looking for, or is it just a randomized?
Well, the Serpens, the beings from Planet Serpo never took anybody. So this taking of beings that that we have seen with these particular grays, these Zeta Reticulites from the Roswell situation, that was their thing. We are not being taken in that way by the beings that we engage with normally, right. Although I think we have the freedom, if we wish, to accompany them to go on craft.
I would. Don't get me right now.
Yeah, and then also we've got, as I said, many of these lifelong experiences when they get into middle life, it's almost as if they're living two parallel lives, because when they're sleeping or napping or whatever, they're bilocating and they're actually working with the evolved beings to try and raise the consciousness. They're trying to help us raise our consciousness. They don't want us to blow up our planet. That would be talk about Love Island, man. I mean, that Love Canal. That would be not Love Island, Love Canal. That would be a toxic galactic waste dump that would affect everybody. So that's the last thing they want. They want us to start using clean energy, and they want us to love our fellow man and, understand that our behavior is putrid.
I have a couple of strange questions, which I usually throw a couple out of the box things at people. It's not to ambush, so don't be worried. So do you think that, in your experience, let's take a group, let's say a group of 20 people that you've worked with. They've all had an encounter of either being, taken and brought back and these types of things. Do they have shared, I was thinking on this, do they have shared experiences, like, if they were able to, like, I don't even know how to put this in words, Leslie. I had a vision of, like, spending time with my father when he was alive, when I was real little. I'd go out and he'd have me on some weekends, and we'd go out and sit in the lawn chair and we'd stare at the sky in the country. There's no light, coming in, so you can see everything. And I always felt like I could be there. I felt content, and I felt like that's a place where I should be. Am I making sense? Do all of them have a shared experience or something that's like a trigger, and they feel it deeply, and it's almost like a relaxing, resting?
I think so. I think so. I think our state of anxiety, our anxiety and our fears and the things that we go through have a lot to do with our neurological system, our animal aspects, that we could be hyper scanners, scanning for danger. I mean, there's all kinds of things, but what we see in these evolved beings is just like what you were describing. They seem to exist, I don't want to say like a heavenly state, because that sounds too religious, but they are definitely existing in a higher vibrational environment, a higher vibrational environment. And, interestingly enough, and, this is pretty far out, but, when I have done, and I still do, lots of past life regressions and interlife regressions. And in the interlife, which I think I mentioned earlier, that's where we are. It's one of the levels of the afterlife, as we call it, but that's where we are before we decide to come back in, if we wish to. That's where we have our past life reviews and we go through all this stuff. And Michael Newton, the great Michael Newton, discovered that people have many points of commonality when they cross over. And there are certain things that everybody goes through. And one of those things is what they call the life review, where we meet with our guides and it's not like a punishing thing. It's a, let's look at this and let's figure it out. It's a loving kind of thing. But very often, when I have taken people to see their council, there are beings on the council that are not fully humanoid in the sense that we would think of them. They may have elongated skulls or, this, that. I mean, nothing too far out, but it seems that we are in a soul group. If these beings are participating in the afterlife with us on a comfortable basis, and I know that people do incarnate, humanoids do incarnate on other planets. So if we have these shared experiences, we are one. We are in the same soul group. And even the Pope, God bless him, even the Pope has said publicly that the discovery of other life forms, other beings, in no way affects the belief in a universal creative spirit. And none of that stuff is in any conflict with Catholicism. That's a big deal.
It is. And I think for me, just for me personally, okay, everybody, so don't send me hate mail. If you do, send it to Bob Penny. Only Elmer gets that joke. So if something happened tomorrow, at least for me, Leslie, that they came down and said, well, we found out this is going to blow everybody, wide open. Hopefully there's not going to be violence and everything else. God came down yesterday. We're going to have a news conference with him. He's proven to us that he's God, but you know what? He's very much just like a man. And he's the one that designed and helped put us here. And he's omnipotent in a sense that he's immortal and he lives forever. Is that going to shake the idea that I've been taught through certain portions of Christianity? And I have issue with that, even though I'm a person that believes in God, that, most religions that were out there before Christianity showed up already had ideas of a creator, whether it be one or two or whatever. I just don't think it would really blow my mind away to where I couldn't live my life. And,
No.
You just progressively, I think spiritually in a good way, people should probably embrace that more because, I say that I'm a Christian in my background, but that's just the title that I'm throwing out there because I don't really know how to describe it. I'm more of a spiritual individual, and I believe that I didn't just show up from nothing. And science to me has always been a great tool. I'm going to get hate mail on this too, because we were already kind of touching on that a little bit in what you were describing about the ETs and where they're at with some of this stuff. Is that I try to remind people all the time that we invented our own math. We invented physics that we understand, that we know it to be. That does not mean that's the explain all, folks, to everything that goes on in the universe. Past the universe, because their science and their math could be something totally different. And because we keep saying, well, this ET stuff and these craft, according to our physics and our math and our gravity and all this and that, it can't be real. We have a lot of people that say that kind of stuff. And I'm constantly trying to debate. And I don't have a degree, but I'm just saying, man, that cannot be. Can you just walk outside every day in your life, folks, and look at everything and wonder around you of all the creation that shouldn't be, but yet there it is. And you want to tell me that you think that we know everything?
I know.
We're like you said, when we are like the worst we can be to each other.
Oh man. And a lot of our world looks like Mordor. I mean, it's really bad news. It's really, really bad. So, I think, and, certainly we now know, or the, Graham Hancock and all the foremost thinkers, we now know that the Great Pyramids of Egypt were made to harness earth energy. That was free energy which was happening in the old kingdom Egypt, or
Right.
possibly
Right.
even, before that. I think personally, I think the pyramids are far older than, it has nothing to do with Khufu, nothing to
I
do with
think
him. It was
I think
far
Elmer.
before that.
Yeah, I think Elmer, you said that too. And we were talking to an individual about. I questioned, like, well, listen, if they were using torches or anything that they had done in there, and again, this is a very, controversial thing, but it's a
Hmm.
true fact. There's no soot anywhere inside these
Nothing.
pyramids. So how did
No.
they light them? Well, now we found diagrams, and somebody built them with
Yeah.
material from them, and
Yeah.
they created light bulbs. So I'm just
They
thinking,
work.
guys, you can't slip a piece of paper in between some of these blocks. Now, you want to sit there and
Yeah.
tell me that man hand chiseled those to perfection when we still can't even hardly do that with laser devices we have
No, we
now.
can't
So
really.
let's
No.
just let's get off the pedestal.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you that it's aliens. I'm just saying that there's some very interesting unexplained things.
Oh, there's a lot of very interesting, inexplicable, dissonances going on there, and unfortunately, you know, e- the Egyptian government, has a guy in charge, Dr. Zawas, who's, really a very eccentric character and is
And
not
seems to cover
very
up stuff. Yeah,
amenable
yeah.
to anybody but
Nope.
Egyptians coming and doing their thing. Now the thing that's being suppressed right now, and this is on the this is a true fact. They have done quite a few studies, the British Museum, quite a few studies on the DNA of the Old Kingdom pharaohs and their families, and what they have found out is these were Europeans. They were early Indo-Europeans. They were not Semitic. They are
Yeah,
not Arabic.
yeah, because if you look at the very, for the longest time,
Yeah.
anything that they would do in effigy to any of these, they were ordered to make them all look the same. And then
Hmm.
when that was finally overturned and thrown out, now you have very lifelike, facial masks and
Yep.
features. Plus, we've made up faces of some of these skulls that we've
Yes.
recovered.
Yes.
You're right; they don't look like the rest of the Egyptians. So you're
They're
like,
not.
well, guys, just like Elmer had alluded to too, there are portions over there, where they're discovering giant bones, and people just keep
Oh my
constantly
goodness.
suppressing this stuff, and it just
Yeah.
blows
Well,
my mind. I'm
it,
sorry, I got
this
off track. It
no,
blows my
you're right.
mind.
But the Smithsonian Institution is hugely responsible
Yep.
for destroying valid archaeological evidence of giants, of gigantic humanoids that are in burial middens all across North America.
I
And
agree.
they rounded up, as these discoveries, people were digging into these mounds at the turn of the last century through the 20s and such, and they, according to what I've been told, they gathered up these humongous skeletons of 14-foot, 17-foot, 18-foot beings and incinerated them. So
Crazy.
because it doesn't fit. Luckily there's still quite a few of these large skeletal remains in Malta and Sardinia, and also on Catalina Island, which is off the coast of Los Angeles.
I
Quite a
have
few.
to get. I got to throw out a compliment to you, Leslie. You know your stuff. You are. She knows her stuff, right, Elmer?
I'm a nerd. I'm the queen of the
No, you're with two other nerds right here too. You know your stuff.
Oh,
I
it's
just
the
wanted you
Nerd
to know that
Patrol, man.
because you're on to everything that I follow, look at, and examine, and
Mm.
research. And I'm not just into the ghost thing. I'm also into this stuff too. And I definitely want to have you back for a part two because there's so much more I want to get
Oh,
to.
I would love that. And
Um,
you know what I would really love sometime, and I think it's probably doable, would for me to be able to join you guys on a ghost investigation. That's one of my very favorite
oh, sure.
things to do, and I belong to several organizations where it's not that big a deal. If I can get to Windsor, which is easy, once everything cools down and I can cross a land bridge. I can't now, I can't come over to Detroit. I can't. It's forbidden for the next month. But once that settles down, I would love to come over and join you guys.
You have an open invite with me anytime. We've done 281 investigations in 14
Wow.
years. Yeah, we were
Wow.
busy. My group wanted to have stuff every weekend when we first started, and I jokingly, it's a true statement, but it is kind of funny. My wife set me aside one night and said, it would be really nice that you see the kids before they graduate college. And it's just like, it started off as a hobby, folks. And Elmer knows, because Elmer retired from it, that, man, you become so obsessed and you're on it all the time. I'm still on it. But the weird part is, too, once you get a taste of some of the drama and some of the other things, it kind of backs you off of it a little bit, because, again, people are humans, people are people. But you have open invite anytime. We focus on a lot of historical places. I don't get into too many personal investigations anymore. Like I said, I got a little wore out emotionally, because I'm a little bit of an empath too, and it was just a little too frustrating at times. But I'm doing some great sites, Leslie. I'd love to have you.
Fantastic. We will make that happen.
We'll do the castle. We'll do the poorhouse.
The castle is famous. The castle is famous. I've longed to investigate Henderson Castle for years on it. So as soon as it's possible for that to happen, we will do it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I have one more to throw at you before we get to the end of the show here. Now, we talked about them, taking folks in the secret program. Is there any involvement with this that would suggest the super soldier program that's involved with any of this stuff?
Oh boy, you know what, man? That is a show in itself. I have seen evidence of that, and as I mentioned, Captain Randy Kramer, he believes that he was enhanced in the womb in vitro, that he received genetic enhancement before he was even born. So I do think that that has happened. And also many experiencers, this is kind of surprising, many experiencers who have been part of these, either the super soldier programs or one of these diverse programs, many of them had families in the military, and they were also stationed along what we call the DEW line, which is a northern line in Canada, but extends into Alaska. It's a U.S.-Canadian line of defense missiles and bases that were designed to protect us from the Russian threat. Okay, so that's the DEW
we have
line.
Some of those left over in the UP. There's a few of them that are abandoned, but they're still there.
And some of them function, some of them don't. But back in the day, many of these men and women who ended up in this kind of enhanced genetic kind of situation were from professional military families, and they were stationed on the DEW line. So I do think there was some opportunistic thing about let's get the kids, if they show ability, we'll use them. I think there was an opportunistic thing with the children of military personnel, which again upsets me very much. But
I'd heard some of that, and I just wondered where you were at with that too.
Well, that seems to be a big chunk of what we're dealing with these individuals that have had, in fact, genetic upgrades from either before birth or from early on, with the idea of them being able to be super soldiers. Of course, part of that super soldier thing was splitting the personality. They wanted to have an aspect of the personality that they could control that would be an unemotional killer or operative. And guess what? It didn't work.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's absolutely insane.
It is.
But I believe it. Tell everybody where they can find your book. You have a book that's called Intersection. It's a true story of extraterrestrial contact, and I guess where they can locate you and find all the great things that you're doing.
Oh, fabulous. Well, the book is, I should probably mention, it is like a case history. It is a story of an individual, a college professor that I worked with from when he first realized that he had been an abductee, I hate that word, an experiencer, to how he learned to integrate it into his life and beyond. And so it's, in that sense, it's got a lot of transcriptions from actual sessions, something you don't see too often in these types of books. So I would love it if you'd pick it up. the book is available on Amazon.com or Amazon.ca or wherever you Amazon. It is available, and you can always reach me at Lesley, Lesley, at lightworkhypnosis.com. It's like all one word. And I'm available. You can find me on Facebook, either as Lightwork Hypnosis or Lesley Mitchell Clark. And I am always, always happy to speak to anybody who just wants to reach out about their experience. And, I'm here to, be an open, safe sounding board if there's something that you would like to talk about. So
excellent.
please get in touch.
Are you still doing the YouTube, the Contact TV?
Yeah, still doing after 12 years. We're still doing Contact TV on YouTube, and now it's a full. Oh, I'm sorry. Now it's a full studio production, so we don't have as many shows, but hopefully they look better. Hopefully I look better. I need a little work, though. I tell you, I think.
Nah, you look beautiful. What are you talking about? Yeah, you look great. Thank you for so much for taking time out of your life to be with this crazy show.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
We often call it a train wreck of fun, but and I appreciate the nice words at the beginning. We really are, Elmer's into this stuff, and we're just trying to share experience and knowledge with whoever tunes in and listens. I can tell you Sunday nights, we're hitting 520,000 potential listeners, folks.
Wonderful.
On unrestricted radio alone, especially through Reverb Nation and everything else we're hooked up to. So,
cool.
And the local audience here in Michigan, which is right around about 3,000 or 4,000 tops.
Wow.
So and I'm not about the numbers, but I thought I'd mention it because I'm humbled by that people are tuning in, downloading the episodes. Everybody, to listen more to this show and while we've got Lesley on here still for a moment or two, you go over to www.themichigan69podcast.com page. Okay. That's our network. And you will see a player on the front page, everybody. And you can scroll through whatever your show is that you want to listen to. We've got SMP shows, I Want to Believe shows. Bob's even in a couple of them. We have a few that are a little off base, and we have a couple of things called Fear the Mind Radio, folks, which is old time radio shows. One of my favorite things to listen to.
Love that.
And once in a while, with permission, we're going to be doing a new thing here, folks, that we're going to be able to put some old best of coast to coast things on. And I had to get permission from Mr. Dan Heiser and a few other people.
Oh yeah.
And so we've been lucky and we've been granted a yes. So we will be playing some old stuff on there that you can listen to at your convenience.
Great.
We also have a page for
where's
Dr.
the
Mike.
goat?
Go ahead.
What goat did you sacrifice to what god to get that? How did you do that?
I contacted them, and I had talked to Mr. Dan Heiser years ago about being on the program, and I backed out because I didn't feel I had enough to share yet. So hopefully I might be showing up on that show at some time because I've put in an application to try to be on. So I'd like to share some of my paranormal work. But we also have a page, folks, on the network to Dr. Michael Lynch. We've got, his a few of his videos and, of course, his Paranormal Zen, which I love because when Mike gets talking, he could you'll stay awake, but he could just about put you to sleep. He's got that kind of voice. And he always covers some interesting topics. We also have a memorial page to my good friend Jason Sullivan, who we lost 2 months ago.
Oh, so sorry.
Now, thank you. And he was just a great, phenomenal guy for paranormal debunking and information. And you can watch his instructional videos on there as well. We've got our friends from Fireland podcast that are taking a hiatus, but we've got some of their shows. Trust me, we network a lot of people. We've got a new one coming to the network here. It's Sinister and Strange Stories. That's not the whole title, but I'm looking forward to having these girls on because they cover true crime and just crazy things, and they have a lot of fun with what they do, and we're happy to share the network with them. Of course, Facebook and Live Radio 1. And as always, we're going to let Elmer head us out.
Keep your eyes to the skies and happy hauntings.
All right, buddy, everybody. And follow this word of advice, okay? If you can't be kinder, okay, and nicer and smarter and nicer, please be quieter, okay? It costs
Yes.
you nothing to be
That's why I
nice to
shut
one
up.
another. Right. Unless Elmer's got to throw a bribe at you, but it costs nothing to be nice to your individuals and everybody around you. Okay. Everybody be safe. You be happy. We'll catch you next time right here on I
Thank you.
Want to Believe.